before going to New York, I was living in Vancouver for 5 years, and I had been working with a collective that I co-founded before the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver. So we were a group of three. We worked together as tour guides at the Vancouver Art Gallery, and so that sort of, at some point, we started asking ourselves, well, why don't we take this kind of model of doing tours that are organized thematically and turn it outwards and bring it into city spaces, because we saw what was happening to the city with it ramping up for the 2010 Olympics and all of the development and displacement that was happening, and we wanted to call attention to that. So, so we were doing urban detours, I guess. And so when I left Vancouver, I wanted to continue that work. And so that's what led me to doing the research that I talked about in New York, looking for other artists who were doing tours, but then also wanting to focus on food. And then when I finished that work, I wanted to put that research to work somehow in this new place where I was living. So that's kind of how it started. And I talked about how the first year was showcasing artists from New York City. After that, I wanted to focus more locally and use local resources to do that. So starting with the second year of the project, so in 2012, I started working just with Montreal-based artists, for the most part. There have been some exceptions to that. And I started looking at what resources Concordia has already in terms of food, so like the People's Potato and Sustainable Concordia, and so on. And one of my advisors, Ted Rutland in geography, suggested the small project funding. So I was completely new to Concordia. I didn't know about these resources. So I started looking for different sources of small project funding, applied for those, and I was really lucky to get, I think, all of them right from the start. And so once I had the funding, I was able to, it's always been important to me to pay the artists and at the same time work on a kind of generosity platform, I guess. So in the first year, I was inviting artists from New York to actually stay at my apartment. So I give them the place to stay for free, but I paid for their airfare, and I paid them a $500 artist fee from the funding that I got. So that artist fee has always been important for me in the ways that I collaborate, as a way of recognizing all of that work. And then it sort of continued in that same way. So in terms of publicity, in the first 4 years, I always printed advertising or promotion for the project. So I had posters that I would hang up here around the campus and in other strategic locations in the city, where there's food projects like Centre Palais Roulant, for example. And I made postcards. So because they're tours, postcards seemed like an appropriate kind of art form to use. But in the last year, since my funding started to diminish, I wasn't applying for as many things because I was trying to finish up my thesis, I stopped printing stuff, and I've just done all of the promotion through my Facebook page. So there's a SensoriuM Facebook page and the website that I mentioned, which is set up as a blog. So it's all, and then using MailChimp. So I've managed to build up a mailing list over the last few years. So it's all gone out that way. And because the organization is really just me at its foundation, the upside of that is the flexibility, but the downside is that if I can't be operational, then nothing happens really. So I had a baby 10 months ago and haven't been able to do any events in that time. And then I've also graduated from my PhD in that time, so I don't have access to that small project funding anymore. So that is in the process of changing as well. So there's a transformation that is going to happen in the organization of the Sensorium, and in fact, I think the name will probably change too, because what's happened in the last couple of years is York University established a research center and took the name, which is causing some complications. So I think that now the way that the structure of the organization transforms is going to largely have to do with what kind of work I'm able to find. So, for example, if I were to get a tenure track position in a university, that would give me access to setting up the project as a research center, which has advantages like being able to continue to offer all of the events for free, which has been really important to me, as opposed to another example would be if I don't end up affiliated with a university and the project has to remain autonomous, then I think it would have to adopt a varied kind of funding structure. So for instance, getting funding from Canada Council for the Arts, other kind of arts funding, art and sustainability funding, and I would probably have to have some events that are paid for in order to supplement the ones that are not, like that. So it's kind of in a moment of flux right now, and I've been planning events where I don't really need any funding, which of course changes the nature of the events themselves too, right? So yeah, that's kind of unstable right now.